Okay, class, welcome to the first lecture here. What we're going to do with this lecture is review what we covered with the map unit with just a couple more details before we dive into some new material. So first is your fun fact for the day. Thomas Jefferson and John Adams both died on the same day, July 4th, 1826, which was 50 years to the day after the Declaration of Independence was signed. And they were rivals, the second and third president, but they also worked together, and it's just kind of interesting that they died on the same day. Okay, so the first thing that was kind of a big change on the map was the Louisiana Purchase, right? So over here was the size of the United States um, after the treaty with Great Britain, and Uh, we have the states, and then we have some territory over here they're trying to figure out what to do with. And quickly, Kentucky and Tennessee and Ohio became states. Um, but then, as we know from class, Thomas Jefferson got the Louisiana Purchase for the cheap from the French because the French needed money for their war. And it basically doubled the size of the U.S. And he himself had some personal qualms about the constitutionality of his action, but he knew that this was an opportunity that we couldn't pass up on. So that was the first area where the U.S. got a bunch of land, was purchasing it from France. Okay. Then we talked about the War of 1812, so we're just going to quickly review the War of 1812. What were some of those causes? There was some trade problems with Britain, and then there was this impressment of soldiers with Britain, right, where Britain would board American ships and say, hey, I think this person is a runaway British sailor. He needs to come work for us again. And the U.S. didn't like Britain just boarding their ships and taking people off them. Then we had trouble with the Native Americans. The British were in Canada, right? And if you remember, they didn't necessarily leave all of their forts in the Midwest areas like Michigan. And they had relationships and alliances with the Native Americans, and they were happy to take the side of the Native Americans when the Native Americans were having territorial conflicts with the United States. A lot of people in the U.S. wanted Canada. They just wanted Britain off the continent and felt like, hey, there's all this land that we didn't get in the War of Independence, and Britain is busy fighting a war with Napoleon, and we can probably just march right up and grab it. So there's a lot of people that wanted Canada as well. People that wanted the U.S. to just kind of prove that it could um, be on even footing with Britain, since Britain was kind of bullying us around a little bit. Okay, we saw that the war went from 1812 to 1814, and we get things out of it like our national anthem. Washington, D.C. got burned by the British, but for the most part, this was a neutral truce. No one really got anything or lost anything from the fighting other than a bunch of people dying and things being burned. So nobody really kind of won the war, but there was a feeling of unity that came out of this.